Okay, let's dive in. We are really going deep today on an album title that, well, it feels like Taylor Swift's most revealing, maybe her most unapologetic confession yet, The Life of a Showgirl.
Yeah, it landed with quite a thud, didn't it? For most artists, that's provocative, sure. But
Mhm.
for her, given everything, it feels less like a catchy name and more like a summary.
A summary of what it actually means to live your entire life, basically since childhood, on a global stage,
Yeah.
for everyone's entertainment, and maybe finally accepting that that is the art form.
Exactly. It's almost like a declaration, not just a confession. So our mission, really, for this deep dive is to break down just how much weight that specific title carries. What does it signal, for her artistic evolution? And crucially, where does it point things, musically and performance-wise?
Because when you map her career, Showgirl feels like a really significant pivot in how she's describing herself, professionally, I mean.
A massive pivot.
I think maybe the best starting point, the most powerful one, comes from looking really closely at the era's tour footage. People have been analyzing this stuff almost frame by frame.
Oh, yeah, those specific moments.
Yeah, those split-second transitions, right. The costume changes between eras where she's literally sprinting off stage against the clock. It's frantic.
And that's where you see it, isn't it? The humanity kind of cracking through the spectacle for just a second.
Totally.
What's so striking about those little clips is that contrast. The spotlight catches her face. She's clearly exhausted, like physically spent from giving everything to, what, 70,000 people?
Right.
But there's also this almost electric buzz about her.
Yeah.
That exhilaration.
Yeah, that exhausted but elated look.
And then snap, it's gone. Swallowed back up by the next era's costume, the next high glamour persona. And that tension, that fleeting glimpse that feels like the engine of this whole album concept.
It's that constant push and pull, isn't it? The private person versus the public machine. It must be exhausting. And seeing that visual contradiction, that leads us straight into defining Showgirl in her context. Because
Yeah.
we're definitely not talking about like a simplistic Vegas idea here, not just feathers and fluff.
No. Our read on this, based on everything, defines this identity as a woman who has deliberately, relentlessly dedicated her entire adult life to creating these huge, spectacular, world-building experiences for other people.
And that spectacle obviously comes at a cost. Privacy, peace, the normal stuff.
A steep ongoing cost, yeah.
Uh,
So the title of The Life of a Showgirl, it isn't just her trying on a character for this album cycle. It feels like the full, final acceptance of a professional identity she's maybe even wrestled with for years.
Wow. The implication there is huge. She's finally coming to terms with the sheer scale of what she's built. And you mentioned earlier, there seems to be a strong link between this acceptance and her personal life now.
Exactly. The analysis really points towards a newfound freedom, maybe stemming from finding someone who genuinely accepts both sides of her coin, meaning both the incredibly demanding, always-on, performative artist and the actual person behind the curtain, the one who's exhausted but fulfilled.
So someone who doesn't just tolerate the showbiz side, but actually embraces it.
That seems to be the interpretation, that integration, finally feeling like the public and private aren't at war. That's potentially what empowers her to make such a bold statement, to title the album with this kind of stark honesty. The stage isn't a burden anymore, maybe. It's a place she owns.
That's a powerful shift in narrative. Okay, let's get granular now, because we know Taylor Swift doesn't choose words lightly. She's a master lyricist, a master of language. This title feels incredibly deliberate. We should break it down word by word. The three main parts.
Good idea. Let's start with life. It's
Yeah.
just stark, isn't it? Uncompromising. If you look back at her album titles, they usually capture an emotion. Fearless, Red, Midnights, or they build a narrative world like Folklore or Speak Now.
Right. Storytelling titles.
Exactly. But now, just life. It feels like documented reality.
Choosing life instead of, I don't know, story or dreams or chronicles or something. That feels very pointed. It sort of sidesteps that fictionalizing she did beautifully in the Folklore Evermore era.
It completely shifts the dynamic
Yeah.
from imagination to documentation. Life implies lived experience, actual reality, not aspiration or fantasy. She's moving past just describing an emotion or framing a narrative. This feels like testimony.
Like saying, this is it. This is the unvarnished truth of what my existence looks like.
This is what it actually looks like to put on the costume, do the show, live this way.
Yeah.
It signals this like intense honesty, maybe even a journalistic level we haven't seen in her titles before. It feels grounded somehow after years of maybe fighting to control the narrative.
Okay, so life sets the tone reality. Then we have the article choice of a showgirl, not of the showgirl. That feels crucial too. Why A? What's the weight there?
That little two-letter choice of A might be the most important linguistic move in the whole title, arguably. If she had gone with the showgirl, it would sound, well, like a claim of being totally unique. Right?
Like, I am the ultimate, the only one. A bit diva-ish, maybe.
Precisely. Like her experience as a performer is singular, incomparable. But a showgirl immediately does something else. It puts her in context. She's one of many.
Part of a lineage.
Exactly. Part of this long tradition of female performers who have carried the weight of spectacle for decades across different genres. It connects her personal experience to history. It acknowledges all the women, from Broadway dancers to Vegas headliners who've lived this demanding performative life.
So it adds this layer of humility and respect for the profession itself.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Humility and respect. She's positioning herself as maybe inheriting this specific legacy, not as some unprecedented phenomenon. It makes the title feel more mature, less like self-pity, maybe.
That makes sense. Acknowledging the shared work, the shared emotional toll of this kind of job.
Yeah. And that leads us right into the main event, the word showgirl itself, the most loaded word in the title. Why that word? Why not performer or artist or entertainer? Those are safer, maybe more respected terms in some circles.
Right. Showgirl has baggage.
It does. But the analysis suggests it's chosen precisely because of its complexity. There are like 5 key connotations that make it the perfect word for this phase.
Okay, break them down for us.
First, and maybe most obvious, is the duality. Showgirl instantly brings up peak glamour, right? Feathers, rhinestones, the whole spectacle.
The visual magic.
But it also implies deep vulnerability. Think about it holding the focus of a huge crowd, while often being barely covered, while enduring incredible physical strain.
Sure.
There's a vulnerability inherent in that display.
Okay, glamour and vulnerability. What's next?
Second is the endurance, the sheer physical and emotional stamina it requires. It points to the athleticism, the mental toughness needed to deliver that level of perfection night after night on a global scale like the Eras Tour. It's demanding.
Okay, got it. The physical toll.
Third, the nature of the performance itself. It's this presentation that kind of paradoxically reveals as much as it conceals. The showgirl is creating fantasy magic, right? Yeah. But the sheer effort involved, the dedication, the work ethic needed to pull it off that reveals the tenacity of the human underneath the costume. It's like an honest spectacle, if that makes sense.
It does. The work shows through the magic.
What's 4?
Fourth, it speaks to being the one who makes the magic happen. Consistently.
Well,
Regardless of personal stuff, crises, whatever. The showgirl is often the backbone, the one ensuring the show goes on.
the reliable engine of the production.
Exactly.
Right.
And finally, the 5th point is acknowledging that the role is both incredibly empowering. I mean, you're the center of the universe for those few hours, commanding all that attention, and at the same time, utterly draining. Exhausting.
Wow.
So the title embraces both sides. The peak and the pit of this very public profession.
I have to jump in here, though. This is fascinating, but isn't there a risk? By leaning so hard into showgirl, does she risk people minimizing the songwriter? The perception that showgirl is just about the surface, the look, not the substance. How does she square reclaiming the word with potentially inviting that kind of dismissal? That's the tightrope walk, isn't it? And it seems like the whole point. The analysis suggests she's actively trying to redefine artistry here. If you track how she's described herself, country singer, then pop artist, then storyteller.
Right.
Evolving to showgirl implies she's now claiming mastery over the whole package, the complete experience, not just the lyrics on the page.
So she's saying the stagecraft, the visuals, the endurance, that's all part of her art too. Equally important.
That seems to be the argument. That creating these immersive worlds, the set design, the choreography, the costumes, the stamina required, all of that, is a product of her creative intellect, just as much as writing a bridge is.
That's a bold claim, expanding the definition of her own art.
And she reinforces it by tapping into that history we mentioned. Historically, showgirls in big productions, Vegas, Broadway, they weren't just ornaments. They were highly skilled, multifaceted performers expected to deliver peak glamour and energy under pressure. They were the essential, sometimes overlooked, foundation of industrial-scale spectacle.
So, by claiming that title now, she's trying to give that role and herself in that role a new kind of gravity and respect.
Precisely. Elevating it.
Okay, looking at her whole career through this showgirl lens really reframes things. It doesn't feel like a random aesthetic choice anymore. It feels like the logical endpoint of a long journey. Let's map that out quickly.
Yeah, you could definitely see distinct phases leading up to this. Phase 1, the dreamer. That's the early stuff, right? Fearless, speak now.
Pure aspiration.
Totally. Titles reflecting a young woman dreaming of big things, love, success, finding her voice. It was all about hope, looking forward.
Then that wide-eyed hope kind of collided with the realities of fame, didn't it? Leading to phase 2, the warrior.
Definitely. Think Red, 1989, maybe the peak of it, Reputation. These felt like battle albums.
Reading back.
Yeah, fighting for her identity, defending her musical shifts, battling the media narratives, protecting herself. The titles were charged, emotional, defensive, like she was constantly wearing armor, defending the person from the performer almost.
And that constant conflict, that must have been exhausting too, which maybe led to the next pivot. Phase 3, the storyteller.
Exactly, their retreat into craft. That's folklore, evermore, and maybe the reflective parts of Midnight's.
Escapism, almost.
Yeah, mastering narrative, exploring fictional characters, different points of view, different times. She became the architect of these intricate emotional worlds for us to explore. And the analysis suggests this was driven by being tired of her own story constantly being picked apart.
So she was tired of the show, basically, and retreated into writing the script instead.
That's a good way to put it. And that retreat makes the current phase even more striking. Because phase 4, the showgirl, is all about acceptance and ownership, total ownership.
What's the complete opposite of the folklore escape, then?
It really is. It feels like she's saying, okay, I'm done fighting the public machine and I'm done hiding behind fictional masks.
Yeah.
She's embracing the spectacle itself.
But differently this time?
Yes. She's ready to tell her real story again, maybe the story of the spectacle. But the posture is completely changed. It's not defensive anymore. It feels like it's coming from a place of authority, of power.
She's telling the story from a position of, like, reconciled strength. She doesn't need to justify the scale of her fame or the performance aspect anymore. She's just saying, yep, this is my life. It's demanding, it's spectacular, and it's actually a skilled, powerful reality.
And I'm good at it.
Yeah, and I'm incredibly good at it. Which brings us back to that idea of acceptance we touched on. This huge artistic statement, this showgirl declaration, it feels like it had to be unlocked by some kind of personal integration. We need to talk more about the Travis factor, as some analyses have put it.
Right. The emotional significance of potentially finding that kind of acceptance seems profound in this context. The thinking goes, the breakthrough might have been realizing she found someone who genuinely loves both Taylors.
Both Taylors.
Yeah, not just the private individual who craves normalcy, but also Taylor Swift Incorporated, the global phenomenon, the showgirl, the driven, maybe even applause-hungry professional who comes off stage completely wiped, but also, totally wired.
Someone who sees the showgirl not as a flaw or a burden, but as part of the whole person.
Yeah.
And celebrates it.
That's the implication, and it's incredibly liberating, potentially. She might no longer feel she has to downplay her ambition or her need for that audience connection or the insane dedication it takes to create that level of spectacle.
She doesn't have to choose or hide parts of herself.
Exactly. Finding someone who celebrates that complexity, even the demanding nature of the job itself, that might be the permission slip she needed internally to finally embrace this identity fully.
So being able to title the album The Life of a Showgirl suggests she's finally maybe free from the pressure to seem normal or less intense than she inherently is. The showgirl is now an accepted, celebrated part of her integrated self.
That personal breakthrough then fuels this larger industry critique and cultural reclamation we talked about. Because, as you said, showgirl can have negative connotations. Superficial, maybe overly sexualized, not serious art compared to, a male rock god or something.
Right. But Taylor using it now, with her platform and the respect she commands, that's a power move.
It's a huge cultural maneuver. She's essentially redefining the term from the inside out, turning showgirl into something that signifies power, incredible skill, dedication, and complex visual storytelling.
She's using her career to argue that actually creating these massive escapist experiences, maintaining that level of polished artistry, entertaining millions globally that is a demanding, legitimate art form.
Hmm?
It requires phenomenal talent and endurance.
It's a real elevation of the role, forcing a conversation about the rigor that goes into creating that kind of spectacle.
Speaking of spectacle and rigor, we have to talk about Vegas. The connection seems unavoidable, right? Las Vegas, the spiritual home of the showgirl. The analysis suggests that symbolism is totally intentional.
Oh, absolutely. Vegas is the ultimate showgirl environment, isn't it? It's defined by that relentless, high-quality night-after-night performance, conjuring magic consistently for new crowds who expect perfection every single time.
And the Eras Tour. You're saying that was basically her global Vegas residency?
In a way, yeah. It was the ultimate training ground for this album title. The Eras Tour essentially turned every city, from Arizona to Australia, into her personal traveling Vegas.
Okay, how so?
She had to embody that specific showgirl skill set. The stamina, the mental focus, the ability to make the exact same incredibly complex show feel fresh, unique, special, and full of energy for every single audience. Night after night after night, it was proof of mastery over that consistent, large-scale, personalized spectacle.
Wow. Okay, so if the title is predicting the creative direction this strongly, then the Tour for the Life of a Showgirl album, it almost has to be her most theatrical, most visually spectacular production ever, right?
That's the strongest prediction coming out of this analysis, yes. We should expect total commitment to the stagecraft, costumes even more elaborate than Eras, detailed, narrative-driven set pieces, choreography that's not just background, but actually pushes the story forward visually.
So an era where the visuals and the music are completely intertwined, inseparable.
That seems to be the idea, the most visually driven storytelling of her career so far.
And think about the cultural timing of this. We're kind of in a weird moment, aren't we? A lot of people talk about being tired of like low effort social media performance, that constant digital upkeep of a persona.
Yeah, there's a fatigue there. But at the same time, there's this deep hunger for what some analysts are calling authentic spectacle. Real, live, breathtaking experiences delivered by someone who's truly mastered their craft.
And Taylor's positioning herself as the one who can deliver that consistently, authentically, globally.
Exactly. She's providing the antidote to digital burnout through these genuine, massive, shared, real-world moments. She is the authentic spectacle in this landscape.
Okay, that sets us up perfectly for predicting the sound of this album. Given the theatricality, the showgirl identity. This can't be Folklore Part 2, right?
Yeah.
Or 1989 revisited.
No way. The music has to match the scale of the concept. The predictions point overwhelmingly towards orchestrated cinematic production, something really big sounding.
Big how, like sonically.
Yeah. Think sweeping arrangements built for huge spaces, a wide, expansive, maybe even luxurious soundscape.
So actual instruments, not just synths.
Definitely. Expect a strong presence of strings that immediately gives you that soaring movie soundtrack feel.
Mm.
But also, crucially, brass sections.
Ah, like trumpets, trombone.
Exactly. That instantly evokes classic theater, Broadway, maybe even that golden age of Vegas entertainment vibe. There's also buzz about possible jazz or cabaret influences woven in, which would fit perfectly with the glamour and the historical nod of the showgirl title.
Okay, so musically big, theatrical, and visually.
Visually, this is where she goes all in. Every music video, every TV performance, presumably, will be designed as a complete, immersive sensory hit. The spectacle isn't just supporting the music, it is the story.
It's the final piece, isn't it? Integrating everything. The huge sound supports the huge visual, supports the huge concept.
She's basically declaring that the entire stage presentation, the whole immersive world she builds, is just as vital to her artistic statement now as her lyrics have always been. It's a full embrace of maximalism.
Which brings this whole deep dive back home, really, to personal growth, deep personal evolution. This title feels like the final step in Taylor fully integrating her public and private selves. She's not just tolerating the showgirl life, she's celebrating it, owning it, framing it as mastery.
Yeah, she's seemingly done minimizing her drive for intensity, that need for audience connection, or her desire to create these moments of magic. She's claiming it all as part of the package, interconnected, essential, legitimate parts of her life's work.
So the life of a showgirl becomes this really powerful, non-apologetic statement. It's definitive. It says, look, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is the tough reality of my job, and frankly, I'm operating at an incredible level of mastery.
She seems to have found this reconciliation, right,
Hmm.
between the grueling work it takes to create that global magic and the exhilarating result it produces.
Yeah.
And that reconciliation, that integration, that feels like the heart of this whole thing.
Okay, that feels like a good place to wrap up this particular deep dive into the theories swirling around the life of a showgirl. Let's just quickly recap the three big takeaways that seem to define this potential new era for Taylor Swift.
Okay. First, those very deliberate word choices. Life for reality, not narrative, and a showgirl, not this showgirl, which signals humility, respect for tradition, and serious dedication to the craft itself.
Right. Second, where this fits in her whole career story. It marks this huge shift towards acceptance and ownership. Moving past the defensiveness of the warrior phase and the escapism of the storyteller phase, it feels like real professional maturity.
And third, that powerful cultural move, reclaiming the word showgirl, positioning that role not as superficial, but as serious, demanding, highly skilled artistry that requires immense dedication and deserves recognition across the industry.
So we've tracked the journey, haven't we? From the girl dreaming, to the warrior fighting, to the storyteller escaping, and now maybe to the artist fully owning the spectacle, without apology.
Which leaves us with one last thought, maybe a provocative question for you, the listener, to chew on while we wait for the album itself. If the showgirl represents this ultimate integration of her public and private self, this unapologetic embrace of the huge scale, what does that mean for the long haul,
Hmm.
for the sustainability of her career, her art?
Right. Does this fierce integration just bring personal peace, or does it paradoxically mean she's built an even bigger stage that she's now obligated to keep performing on?
Something to think about, definitely. Until those curtains finally rise on the life of a showgirl.